Hello. Good afternoon. Hello up in the cheap seats. Hi. I know I'm encountering you under three conditions. One, it's 30 minutes after lunch and your energy is probably lagging. Two, it's 30 minutes after lunch and you're debating whether to sneak off to the bathroom or stick around. Please go for the latter. And three, I have so much I want to share with you. I'm very excited and I have a very limited amount of time. So I'm going to go at a furious pace, if that's okay. I absolutely want to talk to you about Generation Y because I think that as our world of work evolves and we find that we're encountering convulsions and tensions about managing the youngest sector in our workforce, if you flip that around, you might actually think that if they hold different paradigms about work management and leadership, then surely the world of work itself is going to evolve in pretty significant manners when they assume the C-suite. This is the subject of a book that I've written. It's not coming out until January 2020, called Next Generation Leadership. So this is a real sneak preview. You'll have forgotten this conversation entirely by the time you see the book. So this is the sneakiest of sneaky peekies. And what I'd like to do is try to involve you as much as possible in terms of doing some quick surveys. And I'm going old school here. Not because I hate technology, but this gives us a much quicker snapshot of the room. You have these hiding away in your packs. You're probably wondering, when you came in this morning, this is my inner monologue voice. What the hell is that all about? This is the moment. You have a red light on one side and a green light on the other. Here's how it works. I'm going to be asking you some binary questions, and I'm going to ask you to vote red or green by holding up the traffic light. So let's start with the most binary of questions that one can ask in the Commonwealth. Marmite, are you for it or against it? If you're for it, green. If you're against it, red. It is mainly green, which I would expect on this side of the pond. Well done. Hold on to that because I'm going to ask you several other questions as we go. I think we've crossed a meridian now. And now that we've crossed that, it's going to be very difficult for us to continue to manage our people in the way that we ever have before. So let me just talk a little bit. Let's set the stage about generations. Generations, I know, can be a very volatile subject because surely when I talk about generations, I am generalizing, and absolutely I am. What I'd urge you to do is to avoid the trap of saying, if I can think of one exception to these generalizations, I can dismiss the whole thing. All I'm trying to do is enhance your understanding. So yes, you're going to think of differences. Of course, also, different generations are slightly different in different regions of the world in different countries. They are actually converging as we become a more global, connected business society. But let's just get a sense of what we're talking about. So, silent generation, they're the birth years. Is there anyone in the silent generation here in the audience? I'm not going to ask anyone your age, okay? So just broadly. Anyone in the silent generation here? No. You know why? They're all retired, gorging themselves chipmunk-like on their defined benefit pension plans. Oh, yum, 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 yum. Very sad. It's very sad. Do we have any baby boomers in the audience? Baby boomer, yay! Okay, thank you. Agree. Yes. For all of you, you're the last generation where retirement is not just a realistic but a probable outcome in your life. The last generation that has a three-stage life of education, work, retirement. Gen X's, show me your hands or most of us in the room. Most of us are still, at least the managers in the workforce. That's probably why you're here, because your underlings, the Gen Ys, are beavering away in the workplace. But actually, Gen Y compose half the global workforce as we speak. And by 2025, they will compose 75% of the global workforce. We Gen X's are not only smaller demographically, but we're a generation who's like, ooh, retirement, kind of a fungible concept. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. And that's changed the employee-employer social contract. Gen Y, some of you must be, yay, there are a lot of you. Oh, fantastic. Okay, I have done this kind of talk before, so if I'm talking complete rubbish, hold up the red traffic signal. Usually I don't get that, but you never know. And Gen Z, not yet in the workforce, but will be coming online quite soon. Right, so here's where all this research began. 9 years ago, I noticed a pattern, and it was basically about the number of employers that generations had in their lifetime. So for Gen X's, you probably will relate to this. I found this almost invariably true. our grandparents had 1 to 2 employers in their lifetime, right? Our parents had 3 to 4. At the rate at which we are changing employers, we will have 7 to 8. At the rate at which Gen Y is changing employers, they will have 15 to 16, which begs the question, will our children or grandchildren have 32? You're wondering where I got that? Let's bold the numbers. Heck, let's take away the words. Let's line them up. You see that with every generation, the number of employers doubles. You can all panic now. So Ellie, I'm very sorry about Joshua and whatever. I don't know what the life that he will have. It's frightening. Or is it? Or is the way that work is changing, project-based, contractor-based, portfolio-based, which used to be something you did at the end of your career, is that actually an exciting concept in a world where we have to develop and reimagine ourselves constantly? Well, so what I then did, after I discovered this little trend going on, is I surveyed high-potential Gen Ys. So these are not just a random selection of Gen Ys, but people who are nominated by their companies as the leaders of the future, the C-suite of the future. And they come from 44 different countries all over the world, but all squarely in that demographic. The first thing I wanted to know is, well, is that actually true, right? Is the paradigm valid that when you join an employer, you're thinking I'm leaving, quite soon, and that's normal? So I asked them this question: how long do you expect to stay with any given employer? What is the little voice in the back of your head telling you about how long you're going to stay there? And I gave them 4 options. Okay? I just want to see what you think the number 1 answer is. Okay? So traffic lights are at the ready. If you don't think it's the right answer, hold up the red. If you do think it's the right answer, hold up the green. Do you think the number 1 answer was 11 plus years? You've been listening. I see 1 green. Do you think 6 to 10? Yeah. Do you think 3 to 5? Now they're starting to turn. How about 1 to 2? Actually, that's okay. The majority of you think it's 1 to 2. Let's look at this. So 11 plus years was a very small amount. You're absolutely right. It was only 5%. At this point, you would think that the percent would go up dramatically, but it didn't. It was still only 5%. So then 3 to 5 was a huge amount. So those of you who identified 3 to 5 years, that was the correct answer as the number 1 answer. And yet a whopping 37% said they wouldn't stay with any given employer for more than 1 to 2 years. So doing the math really quickly, we see that over 90% plan to stay with an employer for fewer than 5 years, and over a third fewer than 24 months. Now, what baby boomers and Gen X, the way they often see this data is they go, they don't have the loyalty that we had. They didn't put in the hours. They're lazy bastards, right? But actually, it's our fault, ladies and gentlemen. Over the last 30 years, real wage growth has not kept up with inflation. Pension plans have moved from DB to DC. Golden handcuffs have disappeared. Development opportunities have dwindled for our younger employees. We can't really blame them for their lack of loyalty. Any generation is really, the way they behave is a response to the context in which they find themselves. And we created the context. This is also significantly proven by other countries' departments of labor and their studies. US Department of Labor was no different. By the age of 38, 18-year-olds will have 10 to 14 jobs. So what I wanted to just show you a little section. So what does one's career look like these days? I did a LinkedIn search of lots of Gen Y people, and particularly people that I used to work with. So this is a representative sample, not an extreme example, of a Gen Y colleague that I had with a former employer. So let's just look at her career history, okay? This is the Gen Y career path. Some elevator music, if you please, maestro. So she was an intern for 4 months, where she learned a little bit, about certain. Then she decided to go into sales for 3 years, but then changed jobs and was a letting negotiator for a year, but then changed careers, because who wants to be a lettings negotiator? And was an intern for 5 months doing something completely different, was promoted to production assistant for a year, but then changed industries entirely, was a marketing assistant for 1 year, 2 months, promoted to marketing manager for 11 months, and then changed jobs and was a marketing manager for 6 months, promoted to assistant marketing executive for 1 year, 1 month, promoted to marketing executive for 10 months, but then changed employers entirely and was a marketing executive for 6 months still, which means that her average time in any given job was 8.7 months. This is normal. This is not the most extreme example that I could find. So this begs the question, what would attract you, Gen Y, to any given employer? What even might make you stay? So the next question in this survey that I did said, well, what would be your top 3 answers? Okay, just rank 3, 2, 1. What might make you choose an employer? And you see I have tangible things like benefits and bonus, and intangible things like CEO's reputation and CSR. Now, I know you are a very sophisticated, well-researched HR audience. You know what the right answer is. I know this, I can feel it. So I'm not gonna ask you to vote with your traffic lights. I'm gonna ask you to shout out the number 1 answer, okay? You all know this. This is the test. This is your experiment. This is your moment, okay? I'm gonna go 3, 2, 1, go, and then shout. No one's gonna be embarrassed because you're all gonna be shouting at the same time. The number 1 answer, okay? Just give me the number 1 answer. Just shout it out. Just read it from the card, all right? Ready? 3, 2, 1, go! Oh, my God. Why do I bother? Oh, okay. This is what it sounded like from up here. 3, 2, 1, go! Oh, Buffalo Snuffleupagus rhubarb! Okay, so let me see. Here's the top 3 answers. Number 3 was development opportunities, right? Now, this doesn't have to be promotion. There is a semantic dissonance going on here when employers say, oh, well, we only have 5 rungs in this corporate ladder. We can't promote you every 8.7 months. But development can be projects, international secondments, what have you. And these are relatively inexpensive. Number 2, organizational culture, what it means to work here. But this is my favorite definition of culture, and it's the simplest. Shared behaviors. Right? Because when employees join an organization, the first thing they do is they observe the behaviors of their colleagues. And from that, they infer your culture. Not the values on the wall or on the lift. What are the behaviors that one observes? And in particular, in one's team. So employer value proposition, I'm finding, is much less important than one's immediate experience with one's colleagues. And the number 1 answer was work-life balance. Now, if you take nothing else away from what I'm telling you today, take away this. Baby boomers and Gen X, when you hear work-life balance, we hear that as a when question. You want work-life balance? You don't want to work the same amount of hours that I work, you're a lazy bastard. And then but work-life balance for Gen Y is a where statement. Technology allows me to work wherever I wish. Therefore, FaceTime is an extinct concept. Why are you chaining me to my desk from 9 to 5 when I can do this basically anywhere? And I know there are variations in different industries and functions, but here we have the most dramatic semantic discord in the workforce today between older and younger generations. Let me give you a quick acronym to think about, well, how do I engage my people? What can I give them? Remember this acronym, WRAPS, W-R-A-P-S. Work-life balance, reverse mentoring. Why not learn from them, right, rather than assume? Alumni networks. Most professional services organizations are world-class at this. Building up their alumni, their employees. These are going to be your clients and customers of the future, and they might come back. If they only stay for 2 to 5 years, okay, but maybe you get 3 bites of the cherry, right, throughout the length of their career. Projects, I talked about that. That is a development opportunity, can be even more valuable than a promotion. And side hustles. What are side hustles? If your employees have a little business on the side, create a little online entrepreneurial venture, have a little charity that they're working on the side. Think about cultivating that instead of saying, you should be spending every waking hour on us. Because actually, that can help you to think about new insights on customers, on online engagement, developing your CSR profile. There are actually ways in which you can think about letting that be part of one's work life as a citizen of your organization. Okay, so we have different paradigms of work. So how will they lead when they join the workforce? I asked them these 5 choices. When you become the CEO of your organization, what's going to be your mantra, the main thing that keeps you going every day? What are you going to say, in terms of how you lead? All right, let me just do a quick traffic lights at the ready. Do you think how the business is trading was the number 1 answer? If yes, hold up the green. If not, hold up the red. All red. Okay, how about global growth? Global, we're global citizens, of course. Okay, most of you know. Entrepreneurial perspective? Okay, now we're moving. Organizational and personal mission. That's great. Financial worth. A company's job is to maximize shareholder. No, you don't agree with that at all. Okay. Well, you're right. So this one about business trading was a very weak response. The next one, which surprised me, was also an equally weak response. Retaining an entrepreneurial perspective was quite high, and that's useful in a volatile world. But focusing on renewing personal and organizational mission was by far the most significant answer. Now, I'm going to give you 2 seconds to do the math. Okay, you're right. That means only 1% said it was focusing on the financial worth of the business. We can all enter the recession now. And actually, research at Princeton University said the same thing. 85% of young people say that meaning and purpose is the #1 thing that they're looking for in an employer, in a career. Now, here's the great news. Jim started today by saying, how does technology augment humanity? I think Gen Y are pioneers without role models. They are giving us the model for how we might employ more human-centric leadership to our organizations, and also showing us what the future of work might be. Instead of working to live or living to work, maybe we can bring those together and make work-life a life worth living. And that makes me an eternal optimist. Thank you very much for your kind attention. It was wonderful to speak with you. Thank you.
I told you the quality is not going to go down here. Amazing, fantastic. And the interaction element got everyone excited, but the content of it, I think, really tapped into people, because we have those Gen X's who are thinking about what's next, and they are, my world, the Gen Y is coming afterwards. What do we do with those? Right. Quick question, one question. Any question from the floor before I let Adam go?
And I will stick around for the drinks reception afterwards. So
fantastic.
You can ask them questions one-on-one.
Brilliant. So I think I'm going to prefer that they do that afterwards.
Yep.
Just because. Go on. Shout out. Just shout out. Shout out. Yeah.
Use your stage voice.
Very quick question. Do you think some of those traits are bleeding into other generations? I'm a Gen Z, and I think some of those attitudes to the young generation. Sure. I'm starting to think some of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's bleeding. Some of that will simply be empathy. Some of that will be that at the crossroads of generations, right? If you're on the border years, you might more subscribe to one or the other. No, I make no assumptions. But the interesting thing there about that is a lot of people actually, when I talk about generations, they feel dismayed if they're in the border years, because they say, I neither feel like one nor the other. And so actually, you have the most critical job of all in your organization, and that's to bridge. But the other interesting dynamic that you'll find is that in some cases, if you go back hundreds of years, that each generation most closely resembles that of their grandparents. So there's a bit of cyclicality, I wouldn't say entirely, because of some macro conditions going on in our world today. But that gives us hope, too, that generations can actually speak to each other.
Fantastic. Big round of applause for Alan. Thanks so much.